Hello and welcome to the gak.co.uk Guitar Shop podcast. I am your host, Mark Packham. Who is with me this evening?
Hello, my name's Matt. I'm the manager in store.
I'm Joe, and I'm here for your bass queries.
And joining us this evening, as we're J Crossless, is Dan Grace, our acoustics manager.
Hello there.
How's it going, Dan?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Thanks for having me in tonight.
That's all right, no worries. I thought as you were here, and it's been requested a few times actually, we could do like a bit of an acoustic special, just going over acoustic basics and maybe talking about some of the higher end stuff. As well?
Say just acoustic basses then. Just acoustic basses.
Just acoustic basses. That's all we need. No, I thought we could actually, because we occasionally get questions about acoustics and none of us can really answer them, to be honest. We fall much more on the electric side of things.
Well, the answer is Alien 5-string.
Yeah.
Warwick. That's
the only acoustic bass
that's
you'll
your
ever
acoustic
need.
bass.
In fact, that was
we were talking about that. Not the 5-string version, though. You don't need a low B.
5-string.
I thought you were all about the extended range.
Wrong. Yeah, no, they used to do a fretless one. They don't anymore. It's a shame.
So, some of the questions I thought we could, or some of the bits we could cover, basically come from questions that we've either been asked directly on the podcast, or things that you just generally hear in store that about people buying their first guitar, their first acoustic. So first up, I guess the question that we get asked the most when people come in and they're not sure what to get is, should I get a nylon strung? Should I get a steel strung? Does it need to be short scale, or is it full size, full scale? Why would you ever need to buy a nylon? Why would you ever need to buy a steel strung?
Well, I think the first thing you should think about is what you actually want to do with it. If you want to play Spanish music, classical music, then definitely get a nylon. If you want to play folk music, pop music, more modern music, I know there's some modern music that people play in a nylon, but predominantly, don't worry.
What about that fella?
Rodrigo Gabriela.
No. There's a fella.
Jermaine on Flight of the Conchords plays a nylon.
He does.
He plays steel as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think a bit.
Jermaine.
No, I'm sure there's someone famous who plays it.
So
yeah, thanks for the insight there, man.
So generally, if you're looking at doing like folk,
Gonzalez.
Jose Gonzalez.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, he's really good. You should check him out.
He's very good. He did that.
Was
he did a cover of
is he in the
Knives
Beatles
song?
That's all
I really know.
Anyway,
he did the advert. You know the song in the advert where all the bouncy balls are coming down from the sky?
No, I haven't got TV.
That was a cover.
I have, but it's not.
That was him playing it.
Yeah, I know that was him, but it was a cover. It's not
is
his
that a
song.
cover, that song?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's the knife.
so we've narrowed it down to, if you want to play like that fella,
get a nylon. If you want to play like anyone else, get steel
strung. I would say most people that come in and see us, they want to be playing like either kind of folk stuff or like rock stuff, but they don't want to get an electric guitar.
Folk's pretty big at the moment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Ed Sheeran or Johnny Cash.
That's what you're after.
It is.
So what do you get off a steel that perhaps you don't get on a nylon? How do they differ in like construction?
Well, to be honest, I mean they're completely different. A nylon string guitar won't have a truss rod. It'll be a shorter scale. It will have a wider nut, used traditionally anyway.
Yeah.
They're Spanish made. They're braced differently inside. You'll find that the bracing is much lighter on a nylon because there's less to drive the top because of course the strings are made of plastic.
Right.
Also, the wood they use, the tops, the backs and sides will be much thinner.
Okay.
They won't make it quite as big. With a steel string, because you give it more oomph, it's got more drive, there's much more tension on it. You put a truss rod, strengthening rod up the neck, which you can adjust to change the curvature of the neck.
Yeah.
People can't see my hand movements.
No, they can't.
you realise that. The more podcasts you do, the more you realise that.
People can't see how I'm
suspiciously, Matt just sits with his hands under the table. It's weird.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually. I thought it was just because I was around.
No. So
also with a steel string, you'll find the bodies tend to be a bit bigger. You get dreadnought guitars, jumbo guitars, just because you can really, because the strings are heavier, the tension's higher. You can hit it harder. You can get more volume out of it.
And so generally they're made of thicker materials as well.
Only slightly.
Right.
But the main difference is you'll find the tops will be braced a lot heavier.
Okay.
Just because, of course, with that extra tension, you don't want to snap it off.
Don't want it folding up into itself.
Don't want it folding, collapsing on itself, as a friend of mine recently described it.
I suppose for like absolute beginners who are maybe a bit younger, I suppose a nylon might be a better choice just because they come in like a range of sizes, and also they're just a bit softer to play.
Softer in the fingers would be the one.
Yeah.
Kids, up to about say 12, I'd say. If you start hurting yourself when you learn to play guitar, you'd immediately associate that with guitar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't want to play guitar anymore.
I don't want to play it because it really, really hurts.
Yeah.
I think
Standard
it's actually
stuff.
it's quite helpful as well. I mean, the necks are so wide and so flat on classical guitars that they're a bit harder to certainly learn your sort of first standard set of chords on, and that's nothing but a good thing when you're learning.
It's having
all
that
those
flat
shapes.
board, I think. It's been a while since I played a classical, and I kind of had access to one when I was kind of starting out playing guitar, and I remember it just feeling a bit nicer because that board was flatter. It seemed like a bit easier to get on with.
There's a bit more space to be a bit more precise with it, basically.
Yeah.
My mum's a classical guitarist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Actually, only a few months ago, she was like, "Oh, I don't really have room for all of my classical guitars." She has all these like hand built ones that she gets crafted over in Espanol, and she gave me one, which is very nice.
Nice.
Do you know what it's made out of?
I don't know. I've actually meant to ask you because I don't know the brand
Well,
or
yeah,
anything
I
like that. Yeah. I was gonna.
If it's, there's a lot of little manufacturers in Spain. Like Joan Cashmere, I think, is my favourite.
Well, I've always found that interesting that we stock this brand, Joan Cashmere. You just don't really find them, and I think that association started when one of our buyers went over there and visited the factory, and they are like still fairly hand built. Is that right?
Completely. Everything they make is handmade. There's 3 different series. There's a student, a professional, and then like a master build series.
Right.
The student one's brilliant. They usually have solid tops and laminate back and sides. And then as you go up through to the master built stuff, you get the proper, really high grade, all made by one man who's really, really experienced. And it's a family run business as well. It's always been just one family who make, I don't know the exact amount, but it's a fairly low output. I can tell by the amount of time it takes me to order one. It's low output.
You literally place an order with the fella who's going to build it.
Yeah, basically. You
I
call
think
the
with,
bloke and he says,
we need one of these.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I'll do it now. Goes up and does it. But they're fantastic guitars, really well made. And you can tell the attention to detail in the thickness of the boards. The ebony is always very thick. It's always very well finished as well. And
How much money does a master built classical guitar sort of come in?
from
It's
about
quite general, isn't it?
1,300 quid. It's not as much as you'd think. If you buy a custom made or custom shop Stratocaster master build,
It's going to start at like £3,000 more than that.
exactly. So with this, it's the real deal, but you're paying like 1,500 quid for a really
That's great.
nice
That's
bit of gear.
a great price to sort of be able to get something that's made by one fella.
I mean, do you find... I don't know, I kind of always assumed that like maybe like someone who's like a high-end kind of classical player who's probably... more into classical music would probably just have one that they would always use, where someone who's maybe into kind of like steel strings might have a few different ones. They sound, I mean, obviously all different classicals are probably going to sound different, but I assumed it was more like, a violinist would just have one kind of violin that they would just always play, and I assume a kind of maybe a classical player would probably do the same.
I suppose you're right, with violin, you get your Stradivarius and you keep it forever.
Yeah.
And it's probably already a couple of 100 years old anyway.
Yeah.
With the classicals, now we do find that people have like your flamenco guitar, you have your birch back and side, spruce top, really snappy sounding guitar.
Well, yeah, it's worth mentioning that even within the classical side of things, there's guitars built to do different jobs, isn't there? You see them, like the flamenco ones. Sometimes they even come with like scratch plates on them, don't they?
Yeah,
when you're doing that kind of like
You have
hard
Golpe, so it's both sides,
Oh yeah,
top and bottom, because obviously you're pretty busy with your right hand.
and those guitars are often like thinner as well, aren't they? They're kind of
Not in, well, slightly.
Yeah.
You tend to have different neck profiles, and you'll find that the action will be much lower on a flamenco guitar just because of the style. Of course, you
Different
could lower
tension
the
on
action on a
strings as well.
classical, but you probably wouldn't want to because you need that extra height to be that more precise with it. And yeah, you're totally right there. You'd go for a harder tension on a flamenco.
string gauge. Although obviously it matters a lot on steel strung guitars, it's not really. The gauge doesn't really change on classical, does it? It's more about the tension, like how difficult they are to.
It is a different gauge though.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, like an extra hard tension will be a thicker string.
Oh, okay.
And they just don't bother with the
Right.
numbers.
Right, fine.
Better way of doing it, really.
Oh yeah, just do you want light, medium, or heavy?
Yeah,
What do you want?
Keep things simple.
What are you going for?
Yeah.
So also they're going to be a slightly shorter scale.
Yes.
Is that right? So if someone's coming in and they're looking at maybe picking up their first guitar, are there kind of steel strung shorter options as well? Because a lot of people come in, they're just starting out, they're maybe a little bit younger, or they just feel comfortable with something a bit smaller. What sort of options? Obviously, we mentioned either go for a classical, but we do some shorter scale steel string.
Yeah,
as well.
you can do. I mean, with a steel string, if you're looking for an entry level guitar, pardon me, most people will go for, say, a 25.4, which is a longer scale. You can get 24.9 inch scale as well, but the difference for a younger child isn't going to really make a big difference.
Sure.
You can look at things like vintage V300s are very popular with younger people, just because they've got a smaller body shape. The waist is slightly narrower, the bouts are slightly smaller. It's a bit more comfortable on your leg, basically. It doesn't bunch up in your arm. You
Right.
find that people are less bothered about the scale of the neck and more bothered about how it feels in your right hand or your left hand, whether you're left-handed or right-handed. So it does make a difference. Also, with a steel string, with kind of beginners, you tend to find people prefer the 1 11/16 nut width,
Okay.
the more standard, slimmer nut width. And you tend to find that people who, say, feel uncomfortable with a classical, with that big 2-inch nut, will go for that steel string just because of that slimmer nut width.
Right, okay. So you mentioned the vintage V300 there, which I guess is a guitar you point people towards all the time for starting out. But if you are looking at getting going and you're on a bit of a budget, what are the kind of big hitters? What should people be looking out for?
Good guitars, under £200, we're saying?
Well, let's say, I would say starting out. I mean, even if you can get it under 150, great. But I mean,
Easy,
£200. What should people be looking for?
Epiphone AJ220S.
I see.
Amazing. 119 quid. Comes with a solid wood top, a proper Sitka spruce top.
Now, that's something, just to cut you off there, that's something we should have mentioned at the beginning primarily about steel strung guitars, is that you get solid tops and laminate tops.
Yep, same with classicals as well.
Okay, what's the difference?
Big difference is a laminate wood top is a top made of 3 veneers glued together. Now, what that creates is something really, really strong, something that's going to be hard as nails, but it doesn't resonate quite as well. Obviously, a bit of glue isn't going to move as well as a bit of wood.
Sure.
So if you have a solid wood top, it's made of a 1-ply piece of wood, obviously 2 pieces book matched on the top of a guitar. Now what that gives you is a much more pliable material that's able to move. So if it's on the top of the guitar, obviously that's where the strings have a direct relationship to the instrument. So you hit it harder and it's going to make that top move a lot more than a laminate. So it's all in the sound quality, really.
I suppose in a way it's similar to when you're talking about it there, like a nitro and a poly finish on an electric. So a poly's a very thick finish. We say that, if you
much
drop
more
it,
durable.
it just chips you rather than, nitro's probably just going to dent because it's a little bit more pliable. But because nitro's so thin, it allows the wood to resonate. It's not choking the body wood.
Now that happens with acoustic stuff as well. You'll find that the majority of the cheaper guitars, say under £1,000, will all be finished with a polyurethane finish.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And that still happens on an acoustic.
Yeah.
With a proper nitro finish or a more satin finish on the more expensive stuff, you find that has the same effect.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different in that we're actually talking about the resonance of the wood in the instrument, where the resonance of a single ply piece of wood is literally able to move a lot more.
Yeah.
And you get an area, say, I know people at home can't really see this, you get an area from the top of the sound hole.
Dan is pointing at a guitar, by the way.
I'm pointing at a guitar, but you can't see what I'm doing. From the top of the sound hole where the neck joins the body, or the neck joins the sound hole, down to the lower bout of the guitar, that's where things are really moving.
That's like your sound,
what they call a soundboard, yeah.
Yeah, the soundboard. Yeah. What I'm saying is that having a single ply soundboard just drastically improves the tone of your instrument.
Yeah.
And a laminate wood on the back and sides doesn't tend to matter quite so much. It's a lot more subtle.
It's the thing that you always see. It's kind of that kind of go-to phrase when people are talking about, perhaps sub 200 quid instruments. It's like solid top. People get really kind of focus in on that is going to give you a much higher quality sound than anything else really that you can change about the instrument for that price point.
Did you say that's available on this Epiphone?
Yeah, on the AJ220S, it's solid wood top.
Okay, so is that especially rare then to have a...
For that little money, yeah. for 120 quid essentially, I think it's really good. Usually the majority of solid wood top guitars will start around 200 odd upwards from there. Then for all solid wood guitars, I think the cheapest will be about, say, £400 or £500. But
okay, so
that's a rarity.
The top's
as well.
the first thing to change, but back and side only changes that.
Top's the first thing because it's where the strings actually connect to the guitar.
What else can people be looking at for that kind of price point? They're looking to start out on steel strings. What else comes in for that kind of money?
Well, you could think about whether you want a guitar with a pickup in, or a guitar without a pickup. Depends if you really need it. If you're going to be playing gigs, then you're going to need one. If you're just going to be playing at home and you're just starting out, the likelihood is you probably won't really need a pickup. And also, if you get further down the line after you've learned, if you want to add a pickup to a guitar, easily done. A little bit further down the line.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of doing either? So buying perhaps a guitar that's got a pickup fitted already, or one, spending the same money on an acoustic one and then getting the pickup later on down the line.
So if you buy an acoustic guitar with a pickup already installed, obviously you are paying for it, but I'd say you would be paying considerably less than if you bought an acoustic and then fit it later. Though, as I said, if you're just going to be playing at home, it's pretty unnecessary.
Sure.
Unless you want to use, say, a looper pedal, which has become really popular, or you want to record it direct into a computer a bit easier.
Yeah,
I
think now that's much more of an advantage, because I think before people would buy an electro-acoustic and go, I need an acoustic practice amp. But an acoustic in itself obviously is already sort of amplified.
It's kind of a practice amp in itself.
Yeah. But I mean now, with people kind of wanting to record, and I think home recording being a lot more kind of available, and like you say, looper. I hadn't actually thought of that. Actually, a lot of people go,
Katie Tunstall kind of brought that in.
Well, I mean,
in that case, you would need a practice amp because
Katie Tunstall was a few years before Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, but he's made it massively popular.
Well, we'll talk about Ed Sheeran in a minute, because I want to talk about some more slightly high-end stuff and go through some of the major brands and things people should be looking at.
Sure. I was just going to ask on kind of the question of like pickups and using them, having them separately from buying something with a built-in preamp. I assume that gives you more scope to kind of hone your own very specific sound if you're using an external.
Before you jump in on that, my question I was going to ask ties in with that a little bit. What are the different types of pickup? And what is a preamp, and how do the two interact? And
well, this is a kettle of fish, this one.
Okay.
There are so many different ways to amplify your guitar now. The most popular two would be, say, a sound hole pickup, which would be a magnetic pickup. You can't have that on a nylon string guitar, because a nylon string guitar has got plastic strings. So with a steel string guitar, you could have, say, a sound hole. The most popular being the LR Baggs M1, which is 6 poles, plug straight in.
It's like a Strat single coil almost, but
kind of,
but
obviously a different mounting.
Yeah.
They are active, so they're powered. They require a little battery, little watch battery in, and you've got a little volume control in there.
Okay.
No tonal control, you just plug it in and go.
Okay.
So you could plug it into an external preamp if you wanted to. I'll come back to that in a minute though. Another way is the undersaddle pickup, which is a piezo strip.
So how do they work? That's something that we deal with kind of a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of guitars that come with pickups already in will be piezo undersaddle pickups. Now they work off the pressure of the saddle sitting into the bridge. So the strings sit on the saddle, which sits on the pickup, the saddle being the little white bit in your bridge. Now, what they give you is a really, really clean, really crisp, really clear, definite string tone. You don't hear any of the top of the guitar. This is coming back to the solid top thing. With a piezo under saddle pickup, because you don't hear the guitar, you can play in anything. It wouldn't really make a difference.
So then your sound is shaped by, I guess, the quality of the pickup that you go for.
Yeah.
And the quality of the DI box you're plugging into.
They normally come with some form of EQ options.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, there's a few. I think my favourite two would be the LR Baggs Element or the Fishman Matrix Infinity. I've actually got a Matrix in my guitar, which has a mid boost and cut and a little bass boost button in the back.
So all off of buttons, not rotary controls or faders?
Two of them are rotary, which they recede inside the sound hole. So you don't have to cut a big lump of wood out the top for a preamp or anything like that. I'd always steer clear of doing that. You can get replacement large preamps that go in guitars, the big square things you get from. But if you haven't got one already, don't do it. Don't cut a big hole in your guitar.
Well, that was kind of always the thinking in the past. And I think it's only really in the past few years where things like controls inside the sound hole and using external preamps have really kind of come into their own. Because it was always before, it was, cut a big hole in the side of the guitar and slot this huge block in there. And
Let's face it looks so much cooler without it.
Yeah.
So stick it inside. You can never see it.
There are plenty of good external boxes that you can use with tonal controls and things as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that gives you. I mean, you can change things up as well. So if you want to go for a pickup from one manufacturer and then a preamp from somewhere else, doing it, kind of externally and not cutting into the guitar, just gives you a load more options as well.
Makes more sense. When you think about how you set your preamp when you're playing an acoustic, if you're playing a gig, you'll set it in sound check and you'll leave it.
Yeah.
So why not have it on the floor or even off stage?
Yeah.
It just makes so much more sense having it that way. Something like, again, LR bags, and I'm loving LR bags at the moment. They do something called a para DI, which is a parametric EQ and a DI pedal. So you've got a gain in, a volume out, a notch filter in there. So if you're getting feedback, you can just notch out the feedback, a phase shift so you can get rid of the high frequency feedback and stop phase, and then bass, mid, treble control. It just does everything. And it's big box, hard as nails.
It's like a brown metal box.
Yeah, it kind of looks like an effects pedal. Actually, thinking about it, a couple of weeks ago, we did a podcast about the kind of gear that you've forgotten about that's actually amazing. And I think that could easily be on the list. Like if you if you've got a pickup in any acoustic instrument, just get one of those boxes. It just makes everything sound so much better.
I played an acoustic show at a wedding a few months ago and used one of those. One of those had an acoustic with a passive pickup in it, and sounded probably the best I've ever sounded.
Yeah, I've heard people use them with violins and cellos, and
that's where they're really good. Because on something like a cello, you'll always have a passive, sort of either a spot mic or a passive saddle pickup.
Yeah,
and then bang it straight into the LR bags, and it'll make you sound 10 times better.
Cool little unit, and just rugged as well.
Yeah, hard as nails.
So, I mean, why do you prefer using say the piezo system over, say, like a magnetic sound? Because to me, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm so much more to electrics, and whenever we see an electric guitar with a piezo system, they can just sound a bit harsh and a bit too bright. Where if I was going to plug an acoustic, I'd want something that sounds like really warm and almost sounds like your acoustic but plugged in. But I suppose that is difficult to replicate.
I mean, there's a few different ways of doing it. I mean, with a magnetic pickup, I tend to think they suit people who are strummers better, just because things get a little bit crunchier. Things get a little bit dirty, which I'm not totally into personally. I like to keep things as clean as possible. But people like Taylor have created a big innovation, an amazing pickup called Expression System, which is a totally different take on it. Which I think should really catch on, which is a magnetic under fretboard pickup. Because of the way their necks are made, they can afford to put in.
They all snap together, don't they?
They're bolted on, but because of the way they're put together, they're shimmed, so you get a perfect contact still, but the shim will alter the angle of the neck. That again, that's a couple of hours of talking points.
We should probably mention that we've got a Taylor evening, really.
Well, I thought we could do that just to wrap things up. We'll go into the details of that. But, I mean, you mentioned Taylor there. Let's perhaps move on to, who I'd regard as like the big three, I guess.
Just need to talk about their pickup, though.
Okay, all right, fine. Yeah, tell us how this works.
It is
Go
amazing.
on, do it.
With they've actually put the pickup in the place where you'd put a mic on your guitar.
Okay.
Just don't know how no one's thought about that yet. Put it in the bridge. You don't ever mic a guitar up at the bridge. You'd always put it at the neck joint, just because that's where all the tone is. And then a body spot, so you get the character at the top and the tone of the guitar, the tone of the projection. And that kind of thing is possibly the most natural I've ever heard a guitar.
Have they made that standard then, or is it just on a few? Are they sort of trying the waters with it?
It's standard on American series stuff, but not on the Mexican stuff. Though, as part of my little staff pick
Oh,
In a little while, we'll talk about that.
Oh, exciting. So, okay, well, I mean, you mentioned a bit about Taylor there. Just tell us a bit about the company as part of one of... I mean, I guess it's Taylor, Martin and Gibson are our big three acoustic brands, aren't they?
Don't forget Guild.
Well, yeah, you know, they do some stuff too. But let's talk about those three. Let's drill down on those because I think they cover three very different types of acoustic and almost three different kind of build types as well. Tell us a bit about Taylor and how they differ in terms of construction and what you get from that.
Taylor guitars, ultimate kind of modern take on an acoustic guitar. They use some CNC machines to cut the shapes of the guitars and then slot them together later. They make all their tooling in-house, so everything is built by them basically.
Okay.
Bob Taylor, the man.
Bob Taylor is the kind of visionary frontman of
along with
the
his
Taylor Revolution.
good friend Andy Powers, who built all the guitars. And you should definitely read their Wood and Steel magazine. If you buy a Taylor guitar, you'll get a subscription to this magazine every quarter. And the stuff they say in the Q&As with Bob are fantastic. Really interesting stuff. But total modern take on a guitar. They sound very clean, very crisp, though they do everything. You could get an all mahogany guitar, like a proper steaming sounding dreadnought guitar, front a big bandwidth that always cut through. Or you could get like an 814, the ultimate kind of singer-songwriter, solo player guitar, baritone, 8-string guitars, new inventions. Matt Knight's favourite. Matt Knight's favourite.
Have you had a go on that yet, Matt? Because I think that's the sort of thing that...
Did you?
It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, it's upstairs, and every so often I go up there and take it to the corner and
just quickly,
We bought it in for you, Matt.
I know. I really need to buy it.
So the baritone is almost like a kind of half bass, half 12-string. It's got a kind of doubling thing going on.
I think it's the best. I think it's the best possible way to do it. I mean, as an electric player, 8-strings scare me because their necks are so massive. But if they made an 8-string where they do on the acoustics, which they double the D and the G,
Middle 2 strings, yeah.
because there's a couple of companies that do 9 strings where they double the top three.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
if they
think the
did that,
issue with 6-string baritone acoustics is they can sound a little bit dull. They can be a little bit like an electric is. You know, how they're really boomy, bottom-endy. But you kind of want that with an electric.
Well, you've got an amp to add treble, I suppose. You don't necessarily
you can
have
turn
to,
it up.
You can't just turn up the air. You go, I need more treble from this
Turn
air.
it up in your head.
Yeah.
Imagine it. But no, with an 8-string baritone, you get that boominess, but you also get a little bit of sparkle on the top as well. That kind of 12-string chorusy sparkle.
It's a bizarre sounding instrument, but it
such
sounds
a genius
awesome.
invention.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, I mean, the key thing, you talked about it a little bit already, is that the fact that Taylor bolt-on necks across the entire range, is that right?
Yes. Everything.
Which is weird for an
I
acoustic.
wouldn't call it bolt-on, though.
No, I mean, but
It's,
in terms of me being a kind of uneducated electric player...
It's called an NT neck.
Okay.
NT neck, which involves the actual neck part coming up to the penultimate fret, whereas, say, a standard acoustic the neck will end where the body ends, with a dovetail join. Also, you have 2 shims in the neck, which allows them to alter the angle of the neck. So instead, where people make dovetail join guitars, they'll stick the neck on, and they'll have 3 different sizes of bridge that they can then choose from. And you'll stick the appropriate bridge on the guitar.
You get the closest one, basically.
Yeah, and obviously you file it down as well to get everything right, get the measurement right. But with the Taylor, you'll stick the bridge on, and then you'll re-shim the neck until it's the correct adjustment. And also you'll find that say if your guitar, 20, 30 years, however long it is, down the line, if your top starts to pull up with the bridges, your guitar becomes unplayable. You might need to steam the neck off, remove it, put it back on. It's totally doable. But with a Taylor, you just unbolt the neck, send it back, unbolt the neck, stick a new shim in, done.
Because they've not been a company very long. I naturally, when I first started working, they'd been around like Martin and Gibson.
Sure.
They've
80s?
I think it's 70s.
70s?
Yeah, it's like
35 years.
Yeah, something like that.
40
Late
years, something
70s,
like that.
mid 70s.
So they missed that kind of golden era that everyone else experienced.
But I mean, it's incredible to say that they are part of a kind of big three of the acoustic manufacturers when you consider the history of Martin and Gibson,
And they,
who
What
been
is
going
mine? Like
hundreds of years.
1863 or something.
Yeah.
something like that.
Close to
Gibson's
that, yeah.
120.
120 years this year. Yeah.
Well, I'd say you'd find that with Taylor stuff at the moment, you're kind of within that golden period that, say, Gibson experienced in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah, they're
in the middle of it right now.
Knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
I bet if you get a build-to... It might be controversial, but if you buy a build-to-order mega money Taylor now, it's going to be worth a ridiculous amount in the future. I just reckon.
know it.
I
You
just
just feel
reckon
it.
it
I
will.
suppose they're one of the only
Might do it, to be honest.
big companies where the guy who founded the company is still building the instruments and is still involved in their entire process. And
He's
the only
still-
other one is probably PRS.
Yeah.
In terms of big name companies, Mr. Gibson isn't 120 years on still. The company's changed. The same with Fender, it's changed hands. Different people have come in, different designers have come in. That's changed over time. But with Taylor, you've still got your main man.
It's still like the original incarnation of the business.
Yeah.
So I guess the other biggest brand that we sell in terms of acoustics, and we do Gibsons. We'll talk about those in a minute. But Martin, who would be one of those two kind of big legacy brands.
Yeah.
How do Martins differ? What are Martins bringing to the table? If you're looking at these three brands,
Just quickly, do all of us own Taylors?
I've got a GS Mini. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a 110E.
Matt.
I've got a Garrison.
Oh wow.
Which they used to come through same people that made Simon and Patrick.
Oh, the sort of Canadian.
Canadian brand.
And then they got built out by Gibson and then they closed the company.
Oh wow.
So, but it is actually really, really nice. It's all
Bored
solid.
to kill it.
But the
That's
thing
such
is,
a shame.
it was my main guitar when I lived in a student house. I got played by everyone, and obviously with something that's like solid top, the more it plays, the better it sounds. And now, because it's just been played for years and abused for years,
Thank
it just
you
sounds,
everyone for playing.
yeah, it just sounds amazing. So,
I knew there was a reason for your studenty friends.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
to-
they just want to try my guitar.
So tell us what Martin brings to the table.
I got away without saying that I haven't actually got a Taylor.
What did Martin bring to the table?
Well, Martin make a really traditional style of guitar. Martin, as you said, 1883, I think it is. It says it on the headstock. I really should know, but they've been
On every guitar.
yeah. Martin and
Yeah, it
Co.
says
established 1883.
Yeah, you should know that.
You should know
I
that.
think it's 1883. Do you want to?
I'm doing the Bible. You read.
They make very traditional guitars, obviously stuff like the Martin D28, classic guitar, not been changed since forever. I was amazed that they changed the spec of a D18. It's just totally out of character.
Right.
But they make guitars very traditionally. They've done exactly the same. They sound amazing. The thing with Martin guitars that I really like is they're the sound of all the records.
Yeah.
All the records you listen to from, Birds, Eagles, Johnny Cash,
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan. Not so much Bob. Bob's more.
Oh, he did some Gibsons, wasn't it?
It's J45s,
actually, the
yeah.
70s stuff. There's an interesting story that he, in the 70s, was kind of pining for Joan Baez again. So he went out and got, I forget which model it is, but
Treble 018.
It's just like known as the Joan Baez guitar, and all of the stuff from Tangled Up, from Blood on the Tracks, is all played on that guitar because he wanted to be like closer to that
You know so much
that
about
feeling
Bob Dylan.
again. I know I'm a big Bob fan.
Bought a guitar because he fancied a bird.
Well, basically,
Well,
yeah.
we've all been there, haven't we?
Well, so
But yeah, as I said, with Martin stuff, it's the tone of the records. If you want to sound like that old Johnny Cash tone, you want to get a D35. You want to get a 3-piece back, dreadnought guitar, rosewood and spruce. It just totally works. Hand scallop bracing on the HD version. And that's just going to give you that sound. That's why they're still so popular, just because those records mean so much.
I guess that's kind of, when we talk about Fender and Gibson having that kind of legacy of, if you want to sound like Dave Gilmour, then you go and buy a Strat, or if you want to sound like, I don't know, Jimmy Page, then you go and buy a Les Paul. Martin is kind of that for acoustics, isn't it? It's that sound that and when you think of a recorded acoustic guitar, it's probably a Martin.
Yeah. Do a bit of research, you'll find it out.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Or a Gibson. But to be honest, I mean, a lot of the modern stuff you listen to now, especially the players who are a little more proficient, you know, that mega modern, really fast style of acoustic playing. Usually most of them are playing Taylors.
Yeah, and I think that has actually changed, and where kind of the technical nature of playing acoustic has come out rather than just kind of strumming. Taylors have excelled at that because they are bright and they're a bit louder generally, I tend to find.
Yeah, a bit more defined as well. They're slightly more balanced. When you find across the strings, sorry, I'm doing hand movements again. With the Martin guitars, especially with the dreadnoughts, you tend to get that really big sound where all the strings tend to blend. So your chordal stuff will sound absolutely amazing. Yeah. And for flat picking stuff, of course, Martin Dreadnought, you can't really beat it.
How about Gibson? You kind of talked about it, and I think they're kind of, for me, they kind of sit halfway between the two tonally. They've got a little bit more definition maybe than the Martins, but not quite as bright, not quite as hi-fi as the Taylor sound.
Well, I suppose I should probably start by saying that I bought one.
Okay.
Hummingbird is the one for me. It's just the ultimate kind of rock guitar, ultimate acoustic rock guitar. It's mahogany, spruce, it sounds absolutely massive, hand scallop bracing. It's just the loudest guitar I've ever heard.
And so I guess in terms of body shape, that'd be classed as a kind of dreadnought, is that
Dreadnought,
right?
Yeah, square shoulder dreadnought.
And a lot of Gibsons, a lot of the acoustic stuff they make, I guess it's mainly dreadnought, but they also do things like the jumbos and super jumbos. How are they in terms of the model names? How are they kind of defined? I know there's things like DRs and SJs and.
I mean, SJ is a super jumbo. Super jumbo 200 is the classic, the big J-Tron. You know, the Elvis. Yeah. Big Elvis guitar. That's the classic. J45, which is a slope shoulder dreadnought. AJ, advanced jumbo, which is the same kind of shape as the J45, but has a different bracing pattern. It's a forward shifted bracing, so it's away from the bridge, so you get that bass response from it. And you'll find that AJ sometimes have slightly wider nuts as well and 12 fret joins. Right. So they're a bit more of a fingerstyle player. Then they do the Doves, Hummingbirds,
which are all your square-shouldered
dreadnoughts, but each bird is made of a different type of wood. Okay. So you get, say, a dove, which is very bright, great for a big band. They tend to cut through. A hummingbird, which is mahogany and spruce, like I said, really, really loud, and a few different ones. Then you get to the smaller body instruments like Kebmo, Blues Masters, Blues Kings, the L1s, L2s, L3s, LGO3s, stuff like that. But to be honest, Hummingbird's the one, mate.
We talked about those kind of small guitars, I think, once when we were talking about our staff picks. I was talking about sitting and playing the Kebmo and just how much volume you actually get off a small guitar because it's so focused. You don't get a big, like, bassy, boomy sound, but they're just really direct sounding and they come across as quite loud because of that.
It's a character of something called Adirondack spruce, which is a red spruce, which is really, really loud. Just really resonant bit of wood.
Super boomy.
And I think they're braced slightly different to, say, how the Blues King is, just so you get a little bit more bass. With the Blues King, that classic Robert Johnson kind of tone. And with the Kebmo, they brace it slightly differently, just so it's a little more balanced than, say, a blues guitar would be.
It's funny how much difference bracing can make. Really.
But I guess it's when you're dealing with an instrument that is kind of pretty much
dependent on
it's all hollow. It's where you put that bracing and what that bracing's made of and the shape of the bracing that's really going to make the difference.
Well, I suppose with electrics, it's kind of what pickups.
It's big obvious
the same thing.
It's
the thing that it's kind of almost the thing that defines its character.
Yeah.
The final part of the character, and I suppose the bracing is really part of that.
I think with bracing, it's a matter of a balance between the guitar not breaking and the guitar sounding as big as it can.
Yeah.
Because if you brace it too lightly, of course something will just break. Obviously, you'll never have that problem with anything that's a production model now. Done a bit of research. I think everyone's done a bit of research.
I think Gibson have made a few guitars that
they've made a couple. They're not famed for their guitars collapsing in on themselves.
No,
put it that way. They don't break. But in fact, your talk about electric guitars there brought me to an interesting point about amplifiers.
Yeah,
something that say I don't think many people really know too much about acoustic amplifiers. I find a lot of people think that you just plug it into an electric amp. Why not? Be fine.
It's an amp.
But it's an amp.
Yeah.
But then you think about, what does a Stratocaster sound like when it's not plugged in?
Well, sounds like an unplugged.
Sounds like this.
It just sounds like...
Yeah.
So you can play your...
Yeah, blues licks don't quite sound the same.
Yeah. It's not going to work. You need your bit of reverb and a bit of gain in there. So with an electric amp, you are taking the sound of that and you're making it sound like a proper electric guitar.
Yeah.
I like it. I like this analogy. The wall of Marshalls, that's the one that makes a difference. The Gibson Les Paul doesn't really do that much. Obviously it does.
But without an
It's
amp.
got its voice.
Yeah.
But without that big wall of Marshalls, that's where the tone is.
I think we've been quite in the past as saying like 70% amp, 30% guitar. You know?
Yeah. It does, the amp makes a massive difference. And acoustic stuff is designed purely to make the sound of your instrument louder.
Yeah, that's what I always like.
The best acoustic amps are the ones that don't
flattest.
change the sound. The sound coming out is 0% the amp and 100% the...
You
100%
say that, but
instrument.
whenever I see acoustic amps, they all seem to be riddled with controls on them.
Well, I guess it's mainly a lot of the time is to make it sound as natural as possible. But also they tend to have features that allow you to do a bit more. So a lot of them will be designed for, say, singer-songwriters who perhaps want a backing track or want to plug a microphone in as well. And generally they seem to be a bit more, because they're a full-range speaker rather than like an electric guitar speaker, they tend to be a bit more of a kind of utility product, I guess, as well. So if you wanted to run... it's often a lot of people will come in and say, I just want an amp I can plug my iPod into and a microphone. And a lot of the time we'll say, there's some really good acoustic amps that will do that for not a lot of money, because they have got these features for, singer-songwriter type guys as well.
And all the knobs are usually because they have an instrument channel, a mic channel, and another instrument channel. They usually have more than one channel, and you get separate controls for each.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean, though.
They look confusing,
So many knobs on
but
them.
actually not. Gents,
Not like my basement.
no.
Not like your days.
Gents, I think we've covered most bits on acoustics. I think I'd like to do this again though. Maybe we'll get, if you've got some more specific
there's
questions.
Some interesting Martin facts that maybe we should discuss at some
We
point.
can do this in another podcast.
But
I think.
1833. was the answer. If you hadn't already-
1833, so I was close. I knew it was 3.
And think in
I knew one of the 4 digits.
and in 1900
1733.
they only made 182 instruments, but by
Well, they're just gonna be a
2000 it was
proper thing.
24,085. So in
Wow.
100 years, look at all those guitars.
There you go, Matt. You can go home and write that fact down.
I will write it in my fact book
Gents.
of facts.
Let's
You find a pre-war one, and you're in the money.
Gents, let's do some staff picks because we are barreling towards the end of our time. Let's do Matt Knight.
Yes.
What have you been playing this week?
I have been playing. I haven't had a lot of time to play because I've been doing lots of extra hours, and I was messing around today, and I was daydreaming. It was a little bit quiet today, and I was dreaming about pedals, and I was like, whammy pedals. I really like having a whammy pedal because they're just good fun.
They're great.
But sometimes I was messing around with my all-time favourite pedal, the M9, and I was like, it's got a pitch shifter on it, and I was like, if I just put everything down a fifth, I've technically got a baritone, so if I can't take my baritone to practice, for example, I can just put everything down a fifth, but it doesn't sound amazing, and it's a bit glitchy, which is kind of cool. But
This is on the Line 6 M5.
yeah, on the M5. And then the same goes for the whammy, but with the Bomber, which is like a whammy, but from this company called Morpheus, it's totally polyphonic. It doesn't do as many different shifts as a whammy, but it just means that you can shift everything down, and when you're going down, it sounds almost like you're just lowering the trem to a perfect pitch. So you can put it down a fifth, and it just sounds
And
like
it's got immediate response. None of
It's
that
got-
sort of
it-
slight
yeah.
delay. That you
So
get.
you put it down an octave, and it just sounds like you're playing through a bass six.
Sweet.
It's
so
really amazing.
That sounds perfect.
I don't know.
actually.
It's really amazing.
Do you know if it tracks bass?
It tracks everything. Yeah, they're
sweet.
really spot on.
What are they
really,
hitting the
really
shelf at?
spot on. 239. So they're around the same sort of price as a whammy.
I don't know too much about Morpheus. Where did they spring from? Because it seemed like a couple of years ago they didn't exist, and now they
No,
made
it's
they're
the
quite a lot
first
of
time
stuff.
I've heard the
They're
name.
just sort of I don't know, one of those companies that make this sort of random pedal that I don't think too many people know about, but they started off doing the drop tune, which was effectively the same thing as the Bomber, but without the expression pedal. So you could just shift down a step at a time, or half a step at a time, all the way down to a full octave.
Oh,
so you could literally just go bum 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 all the way down. So you could just transpose everything down, but you couldn't express it. So it was just on or off.
Purely something that you would use if you wanted to emulate.
Pretty good if you were thinking, oh sweet, well I'm in this metal band and we do some tune. We're normally in E standard, but we do a couple of tunes that are in drop C.
Well, even if you have a section in a track that's like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So then they went, well, that's
like
cool.
A utility,
yeah,
rather than a crazy effect. Like
do you know how much the drop tune hits the shelf?
They were. I did have it. I did have it on my magical book of dreams. 145.
Oh.
And you can go up or down, and then on or off.
I'm quite excited by that.
But they did that, and then they went, well, hold on. Not many people. A lot of people will just. I'll have another guitar. So then they did the Morpheus. I think it was either called the Capo. I don't think it was called the Up Tune.
It was called the Capo. Yeah.
Was it called the Capo? I had Up Tune in my head, and I was like, no, which was basically the same, but it was like a virtual capo all the way up to the 12th fret. So it shifted everything up, all profile, and it just sounds
brilliant.
Wicked. So you're doing Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, and you're like, yeah, don't want to put a capo on the 7th fret, just up all that way, and away you go.
Jack White in a pedal.
Yeah, well, basically, so they did the Bomber, so you can do it as with expression. But the crazy thing is, because it tracks so well, if you were just playing an arpeggio, just like random slow, and you slowed the pedal down, it actually sounds like a slowing record. Because it tracks so well, it just sounds like everything's just slowing down.
That sounds absolutely brilliant.
It is a really, really cool unit, and especially if, the drop tune comes in there as well if you don't really want the expression, but it's amazing if you do stuff like me. I really love playing a baritone, I really love playing a bass 6, but most pub gigs you're not really going to take 3 guitars.
So, normally when you talk about pedals, I'm not very interested. Whilst I have loads of pedals, I have a big pedal board, a massive pedal board for a bass player, but I don't care about £500 reverb pedals, which is basically what you talk about. So this is actually really interesting.
£500 reverb pedals, but
a worty contender for the kind of whammies crown for the pitch shifting.
Well, me and Dan were sort of talking about it.
We were talking about it here.
And the thing is, if I had my way, I'd put both. I'd have both on the pedal board.
One on either side. Left foot and right foot, both at the same time.
I wonder what that would be like.
Well, because the thing is, you can buy the Whammy 5. You can buy the Whammy 5, which has got the polyphonic mode, but Whammies sound like very, very unique. They sound like a Whammy. You turn a Whammy on and you've got the octave up and you've got this instant kind of Johnny Greenwood,
I'm one of those.
Tom Morello.
I'm one of those. I used to have an XP 100. XP 100.
The Whammy
the second one. And it was amazing. The tracking was awful. It hardly worked, and it sounded absolutely amazing.
Yeah, haven't we got a vintage one in the shop at the moment? Is it?
It's the same one, XP 100. Yeah.
Is it my one?
It's that sound though, isn't it? It's that kind of like weird glitchy.
Is it my one?
I think it might still be yours.
It's still my one. Okay, buy my XP 100. It's on the GAC website at the moment.
What you should have done is sold it and then
really
bought
like
a Morpheus
it, but I decided to start playing acoustic guitars instead, so I have no need.
You could just put that on.
You could
Whammy acoustic.
But
I just love pitch shifting, but sometimes I'm like, I don't want that glitchy kind of top-endy sort of thing. I really want... I really want something that tracks amazingly.
That My Eye and Lung Radiohead.
Yeah, that all comes from kind of, that.
Does the Morpheus give that kind of chorusy effect, or is it just purely the tone?
It's just purely. It literally sounds like you've tuned your guitar up or down, which is really nice because basically you've got up a second, up a fifth, up an octave, up 2 octaves, and then down a second, down a fourth, down a fifth baritone, or 4 baritone, and then down an octave and down 2 octaves, and then you can dive bomb to 3 octaves.
Yes.
Perfect. And actually, it sounds really good if you don't have a Floyd Rose, but you like doing crazy whammy tricks. That's when it really works because it tracks so well. If you just go mental with the strings and then mental with the expression, it just.
Me and Mark were talking on the way over here about how I'm thinking about setting up a second bass because the guitarist in my band tunes to drop B a lot. Well, literally just drops his E string to B. That I might, and I don't like 5 strings, so I might start playing a bass tuned B E A D, like the bead, like the late bass player from Slipknot.
Joe Branton.
This would actually be a way to do that.
You're going to buy that Ibanez one you saw on the internet, the pink one?
Oh, I'm really thinking about it. The Jarrock Yeah.
You should get that. Tune that to bead.
Yeah.
Joe Brenton.
Yes, dear.
What have you been playing this week?
This week, I got to play a couple of things, but the thing I especially liked the most was the Fender Starcaster bass.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah,
and they're
hasn't
finally here, and we got our hands on one yesterday. And the little video that's up on the site now, as you're listening to this.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Starcaster bass.
It's absolutely totally brilliant. I was thoroughly impressed. I mean, I was really impressed with the Coronado bass as well. I mean, part of it, I was a little dubious because I know they were both the Coronado and the Starcaster are basses in their own right, and they were things that obviously Fender ran with for a time in the 60s and for the Coronado, and in the 70s for the Starcaster. But I couldn't help but think they were essentially, it was a bit of a Gibson of them. No, and I don't mean that by them being hollow instruments, but as in they are guitars that they've done a bass version of. And
Okay.
I'm always dubious of that, especially when they don't change pickups. I mean, obviously the pickups are different, but with the Starcaster guitar version, it has two humbuckers in the same position that you have on this bass. And guitars and bass are totally different things, and the same setup doesn't necessarily work on both. So I tend to be it just feels as if not a lot of thought has gone into the basses. They've just copied whatever the form was for the guitars. But I am completely wrong, because the Starcaster is absolutely fantastic. Just the range of tones that are available from a hollow body instrument is incredible, and the whole thing's maple with a big maple center block. So
It's so
ways of time.
70s. Just
Yeah.
make everything out of really heavy maple.
Yeah, which is perfect. I mean, basses should weigh a lot. You should have to get some insurance out on your shoulder.
Being maple though, does that makes it really bright?
No,
Yeah,
well,
but because
it's
it's
really
hollow,
present.
it kind of just really present. Like
Cool.
you run that with tone all the way up just on the back pickup, because it's it's those big sort of telly style humbuckers, those big wide range humbuckers.
Oh, the wide range ones.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so you run that just on the back pickup and you get such a honky tone, like such a usable sound.
snarly, just
Yeah.
like really like aggro off that back
Yeah,
pickup.
exactly. I mean, I really like that tone. It's kind of like a Jacko Pastorius sort of tone, but with some real balls to it.
My question then is, have you tried it with an SVT on full volume yet?
No, I haven't.
that's
We
yet
did have
to happen.
we did use the Sans amp. Were we using the Ampeg
Sounds like-
one?
Yeah, VT bass driver.
Yeah.
I would
Has
suggest
James Watts played one yet?
I don't know. I think it only went down the shop.
Yeah,
yesterday.
it came down the shops.
We need James Watts to play that.
Yeah,
I would
people
suggest
love
He's the
it.
real test if
Yeah.
it's maple.
I would suggest that because it's hollow body and heavy and big, I actually don't think feedback's going to be too much of an issue.
No,
I don't think that's going to be a concern, because the centre block is quite big.
Yeah, it's huge.
Well, the thing I find with centre block hollow body guitars is the feedback is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's
It's actually
usable.
really
Yeah.
It's
usable,
so
yeah.
usable. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's why with my ES 135, my old Gibson, it's the best attribute it has. You just stand in the right place next to an amp, and it's going to scream at you, but in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
I reckon
Yeah.
that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, probably will. But I found it just incredibly usable. I mean, the other thing, other than having that great sort of really powerful honky cutting tone, is you flick it up to the neck pickup, roll off all your tone, and you have the best old school telly bass sort of sound. That sort of just brilliant, ploddy Jack Brucey sort of tone.
That it was almost kind of like dubby with the tone off on that neck
Well,
pickup.
it
It was
was-
like, it sounded like a dub record. It was like
It was
very very deep.
It was like having a supercharged jazz bass and like a Gibson SG bass all at once.
All in
sort
one
of thing.
bass. Yeah,
exactly.
definitely. Dan Grace, do you want to do a staff pick?
I'd love to.
What should people be
I'd love
coming
to.
up to see you in your acoustic department?
Well, I
what should
took
they
a
be
delivery
playing?
from Taylor the other day of the new full limited guitars. Now, there's a few. There's a few. There's a new GS Mini. There's a new 4 Series guitar. But the one that I've been really into has been the 2 Series full limited stuff.
Now,
In particular, the 214 and 210 CE limiteds.
what do the numbers mean?
Okay. The first number, the 2 in this instance, denotes the series of the guitars. You get 1 series, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that will denote the woods used
Okay.
in the series. So, of course, say something like 3 series is Sapele back and side spruce top. 4 series is Ovencoal back and sides, spruce top. 8 series is Sitka spruce top, Indian rosewood back and sides. Now 2 series is laminate rosewood on the back and sides and Sitka spruce on the top. Now the standard you want to know the rest of the numbers as well, actually? Might as well.
Yeah, I mean, what does the 1-4 stand for?
The 1 in the middle denotes the type of woods used as well. 1 means it's a different top, back and sides. 2 means it's the same top as the back and sides.
Okay.
So 520 is a 5 series, which is mahogany. 2, which is all mahogany. And 0, which is a dreadnought.
Okay.
So 0 is a dreadnought. This is the third number here we're talking about. 0 is a dreadnought. 2 is a grand concert. 4 is a grand auditorium. 6 is a grand symphony. And 8 is a grand orchestra.
Now, what were the numbers that you have chosen from this line?
214 for this one.
The 214.
Which is a 2 series, Sitka spruce and rosewood laminate. 1, which means it's got a different top. And 4, which means it's a grand auditorium. Then CE, which is cutaway electro. Now, think about this 214 CE. It's a little bit more money, I'll admit. It's 959, whereas the standard model is 833. But they have done something that I have wanted them to do forever. They have done something which is put the proper expression system, the American pickup, in the Mexican guitar.
So these guitars are made off-site. They're made in Mexico and then
Made in Mexico.
and then finished and set up, sort of thing.
Apparently, if you could go through customs without having to do anything, if you could drive straight through customs, it'd take you half an hour to drive there.
Really? Okay.
But because you have to go through customs, I think it takes like 4 hours to get there. Because the main American factory is in San Diego.
Okay.
And their Mexican factory is just across the border. So this one, with the 214 CE Limited, they give you the proper expression pickup. They give you the gloss finish all over, so it really looks the part, plays the part. And that's really the main difference. And a hard case. So you may think on paper, it doesn't look like much. But when you plug it in, you really notice a difference. The difference between the standard under saddle and the full expression system is huge. You get pretty much completely feedback resistant instrument. Pretty much. You know, the expression system, you can plug it in, you can crank it up, and I challenge you to
make
get
it scream.
Can you buy the expression system separately or have it fitted? Can you send it off to have it fitted? Or
You can have it retrofitted. I'm unsure of how much it costs. I think it's a few £100, but we can do that as well. Usually with Taylor stuff though, they prefer to deal with customers direct.
Yeah.
But if you require an aftermarket pickup system and you've already bought a guitar from us, give me a call and we can always talk about it. It's easy to do. But with this 2 series, they've just done something that I think they should have done all along.
Put the expression system in the slightly more affordable
in the standard guitars. And if anything, why not make the standard guitars slightly more expensive? Just put these in. Just because it's so worth having, it makes such a massive difference to your guitar.
Chaps, let's do some questions. We've got a whole host. In fact, we've got some left over from last week that we didn't even get around to. Matt Knight, this one, I think, you said you wanted to answer it last week.
I did.
This is from Chris on Facebook, who says, "Hi guys, love the podcast. Need advice. Was going to buy the Moog Mooga Fuga MF104M delay pedal, but now they're going to release the Mini Fuga delay. Is it worth waiting?" Last week you said, yes, it is worth waiting.
Yes.
What are your reasons why?
Well, basically, Moog pedals, or Moog, are awesome, but the pedals, I think, were always really aimed at the synthesizer market because they're so modular. Every control on the front can be controlled via an expression pedal, via CV on the back. And they sound cool on guitar, but they're big, they're bulky, they take up a lot of, real estate. Let's be honest here, these things are absolutely
That's your
massive.
important... That's
These
the most
things are
important thing.
massive. And I must admit, I actually owned a Freakbox until a few weeks ago and I sold it because it was amazing, but the sound that you want out of it is this crazy, wacky, wild, distorted wah sound that just sounds like a duck that's shouting through a distorted megaphone. And the thing is, I was
it's the tone everyone wants.
But the thing
Totally
is,
usable pedal.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the pedal itself is massive, and I couldn't really ever think, well, when am I ever going to use it a lot? And then they've brought out, say, for example, the Mini Fuga Drive, which is a really cool distortion circuit, which is similar sound to the Freakbox, but it's got a variable filter control that you can control with an expression pedal. And the same goes for a lot of the other lines. So they do the delay. So the delay pedal is expensive. The M104M, the analog delay they do at the moment, is £579.
Wow.
Now, I love pedals.
Also,
But as a guitar-
£579.
Yeah, I also love £579.
That's
and
like not even rent money, is it?
the thing is, it sounds amazing, but I think for the money and for the size, I think the Moog Figure delays, the mini ones, are going to be so good.
How much are the minis hitting the shelf?
169 quid.
Oh, that's
They're all
fantastic.
analog. You can control the delay time or the feedback with an expression pedal. The big pedals are cool, but I think they'd be better. One of the other guys, Dan, who works in Pro Audio, he's got 3 of them, and they're set up in a little rack, and then he's got a little patch box for all CV and all sort of modular, and they're cool because they can sort of plug into one another, and one pedal can control another. But to be honest,
That's kind of what they're designed for, though, is it?
Yeah.
Being on top of the desk.
yeah.
rather than
But
on
to
the
be
floor.
honest, you know, for a guitarist who predominantly has everything on a pedal board, a smaller pedal like that, there's instantly a little bit more tweakable.
El Capistan, maybe?
Well, yeah, or you know, I mean, that's the thing. A pedal like that, would you rather have that pedal on the floor with 5 controls? It sounds awesome, or the same pedal in a much bigger box that's got much more in terms of tweakability that you're not going to be able to do because you're hitting 6 strings.
I don't think they really need any more control out
That's
of
the
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Would you really want to like patch the delay time into like the ring modulator and then extend that
already
out to something
spoiled
else?
Because I can say how old the tape is or how curled up the tape
Exactly.
is. I thought
But
I was
that's a
too
simple-
spoiled already.
That's a simple choice that you, as a guitarist, have to make.
Currently, I'm opting for
Old tape.
a reasonably old tape and pretty curled up.
Yeah.
And it just sounds amazing.
So to echo your answer last week, we're saying that yes, wait for the smaller ones
I think for
because
guitarists,
we
they're
think
going to be awesome.
they're more suited to
And
the
they're
guitar.
super affordable. I mean, they
169
the
quid.
cheapest, the drive is 100 and the cheapest one actually is the Boost, which is going to be awesome. And then the ring modulator is 129 quid. So Boost is 119, 129 for the ring modulator, 139 for the drive, 49 for the trem, and then 169 for the delay.
For the delay. So that's a real Strymon contender then.
I think
Is that,
so.
Are they the same price, or similar?
I think, yeah, they're 100 quid cheaper.
100 quid cheap?
Yeah.
Blimey, I'd spent a lot of money on that Strymon. didn't I? I've not looked at my bank statement yet, unfortunately.
Right.
I don't think I'm going to look at my bank statement now.
Question from Richard via email. He says, as a relative beginner to the guitar, I have a question. RE, the cheaper end of the Strat world. Fender made in Mexico versus GNL Legacy Tribute Series. At the moment, I'm really liking the sound of the GNL tributes, but they're very different from a Fender Mex of the equivalent range. I was just wondering what the pros and cons would be of going with the GNL over the Fender. Now, full disclosure before this one, we don't do GNL guitars, and to be honest, I don't know a huge amount about them.
They're Leo Fender's last project.
Indeed. I would say actually a bigger battle these days, and one that is perhaps like a bit more relevant, is do you go for the lower end of the Mexican range, like a Mexican standard, or do you go for the top end of the Squire range?
Yeah.
Do you go for something like a classic vibe?
That's the conversation we have a lot of the time downstairs.
How do you feel that applies to the Strat side of things?
And it's the same thing. I mean, the thing is, the lowest or the cheapest range Mexican Strat you can get is, I think, 410.
Yeah, a Mexican standard.
And they're good guitars, but they look a little boring. But you go to a Squire and you go to, say, for example, the Simon Neil that we were talking about last
yeah.
round,
Neil, yeah.
which
All
is
about the Simon
310. So I think it's 100 quid cheaper, and it just looks like a cooler guitar.
You can pay £310 for a Fiesta Red Strat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
really
just think
cool.
if you were gonna, if
It's
you
a
were,
nice lacquered neck as well.
Yeah, you've got
just-
that vintage.
that just
vintage
look
thing.
cooler, and I think that sort of look sort of almost like permeates to the actual overall feel of the guitar and how you feel about when you're playing it.
I think they sound awesome as well.
Yeah, I think that-
Jazzmaster that we saw, I don't know which one it was, the one I played a few months ago, sounded absolutely amazing.
What, one of the Squire ones?
Classic Vibe.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it Classic Vibe
Classic
or
Vibe,
Vintage
yeah.
Mod series?
Classic
the
Vibe.
Vismod on
Classic
the
Vibe.
Jaguars.
It sounded absolutely rocking.
Oh, yeah,
If
you're right,
Simon
it is
Neil's, anything to go by from that, then
Yeah.
that must sound
But I don't think
phenomenal.
you're even limited to that. I mean, coming from the same factory, we've also got the Modern Player Fender series.
Yeah.
That the Chinese built Fenders, which are coming in at sort of around the 300.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
can
mark
see.
as
I
well.
can foresee like a serious some sort of collision explosion type thing within Fender within the next few years, because I think that they're obviously getting a lot more control over what they can produce, and a lot of
Squier
it is
do now, don't they? They've got complete
overtaking.
control.
I mean, the thing is, I think now once you go up to a classic player, so the same sort of idea but designed by the guys in the Custom Shop Factory, I think they should be the entry level Fender. I think they should be the entry level Mexican Fender, because they're custom shop designed, custom radius, custom pickups, custom neck profile, and they're like 650 quid.
So this is actually the real battle, I think, is it? Even if you take out the lower end, I think you should take out the lower end of the made in Mexico and go and say, do I perhaps want to spend 300 quid on a classic vibe and spend a bit more on maybe pedals and an amp? Or do I want to stretch my budget for the guitar a bit and look at like the classic player 50s and 60s Strats, which for me are up there with the American stuff, and they're nowhere near as expensive.
I think the thing is now is we're seeing more people go for either the lower range of stuff, and people are building up a collection of lower range instruments because there's more fun and cooler instruments around at a lower price. Like people who probably always wanted a Jazzmaster but never wanted to fork out 1,200 quid for an American one are going, I can get that Squier, and oh my god, they're doing a Squier and that, and they're doing that, and we're actually either selling loads of those, or someone's going, no, I'm just going to buy an American one.
Well, it used to be the case that if you wanted to not spend a lot of money on a guitar, that meant, and we've said it before, but that meant a Mexican, Strat Tele P-bass, jazz bass, which meant getting something that was very, very general purpose. Whereas now you can not spend a lot of money and get something that really...
spec.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But now you can spend, money on a classic vibe or a Vint mod or a modern player, and you can get something that really does something...
J
a little bit different.
Maskis,
Yeah,
Jazzmaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Anodized.
Like that.
Is it proper anodized?
Yeah,
player?
Yeah,
great.
it's a proper anodized gold plater.
And analysed.
Analysed player.
Analysed,
Yeah.
and then anodized.
Yeah. Gents, we've got two more questions that I really want to do. Richard, sorry we couldn't really kind of answer that about the G&Ls, but we don't know too much about them, actually. But yeah, I think actually your option is look at high-end Squier, or perhaps look a little bit further up the Mexican range to the classic player stuff. Right. Corey via email says, I was just wondering if you could recommend me a 212 combo that could, not as many words, but he says that would sound like a Marshall Super Lead Plexi head. To me, that is the amplifier. However, it's super impractical for taking gigging and other scenarios. I'm looking for the combo. So I've been contemplating the Blues Breaker combo. He says money's not particularly an issue. However, he knows that it's not using the EL34s and doesn't have an effects loop. Is this the closest combo to the almighty Plexi head, or can I get closer?
Now they're bringing out a anniversary Blues Breaker, aren't they, soon? Am I right in saying that?
Matt Knight, I don't know.
Funny enough,
point the real deal, I hear.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I actually answered very briefly in an email to him, because the thing is, if you want a Plexi sound, there isn't really anything that sounds like a Plexi, but the problem is with a Plexi is they're 100 watts, and you have to get the sound, you've got to turn everything
all the way up.
All the way up. So,
as we've spoken about before, when we had Doug Aldridge from Whitesnake in, and he turned up a Plexi.
Well, he turned up the 59, the Randy Rhoads one, didn't he?
And
the loudest guitar head ever.
It was louder than the other amp he'd been using, which was going through a theatre PA.
Yeah.
This was just running unmiked, and you couldn't stand in the room, basically, because it was so loud. It sounded incredible, but it was just... I could feel my teeth moving in my mouth because of the sound.
This venue is probably about 200 yards away from our Brighton shop, and you could probably hear it at the front door. Bear in mind, this venue is actually downstairs, underground.
Yeah, you definitely could. You definitely could. So, Matt, what would your advice be for a 212 combo?
I said don't go for it. Don't go for a 2x12 combo. I said I think if you want a Plexi. And I've heard one of these being used, and I think these amps are the absolute don, and I still really want one, and that's the 74X.
Yeah.
The ham-wide 18-watt 1x12 combo. Because those things were just absolutely amazing. 18 watts, so perfectly giggable, but they break up more. EL84s. I think the thing is, he's put an effects loop, but
Change
thing
your
is, a
look
lot of
to the
those
blues
ones-
breaker.
Yeah, I mean, that is just a mini blues breaker, basically. But things like the effects loop, I mean, original Plexi wouldn't have really had anything like that. You just stick everything in the front of the amp.
We've
Just
talked
turn
about
it
this
out.
again before, that your current advice is don't worry about an effects loop. Just put everything in the front
Yeah,
end.
I
I don't
just,
use an effects loop.
Drive the front of the amp every time.
yeah.
It just sounds better.
I think, each their own, but I mean, I think with something like this, you would turn it up, but it's only 18 watts, so you're not going to kill anyone if you turn it up to maximum volume, and then just stick something else that's going to boost the preamp in.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah, we'll try.
give it a
How much do they hit the shelf at?
They are $13.50.
Single 12.
Single 12. But Dan is correct, and actually I wasn't aware of this. They are doing a 1962 hand-wired blues breaker combo, which comes in at a back-breaking £2,699.
Wow.
But it sounds amazing. It sounds like it's proper point to point.
Yeah.
I think they've done it with a valve rectifier as well.
It's a valve rectifier, and it's the KT66s, so it's
the proper one, the original
the
one.
proper Don.
I think it's made in England as well. It's going to be the real deal. Now, I actually I've had a head start here. I spoke to Marshall about this already.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he said...
You're friends with him now, are you?
I'm friends, best buds. He said, I think he said, if you want one, you have to kind of ask them for it.
Okay, so
I think it's probably the kind of thing, I don't know, well, it's up to you really, Matt. I think it's the kind of thing that we'll probably buy anyway, just to have one in the shop.
just have one, yeah.
But I think if you do want one of those, you're going to have to call us.
It'll be a similar situation to what they were doing with the Lemmy stack, where they're built to order basically. If
They're
you want to
doing
buy
this-
one, you
the 415?
you contact
My dream cab.
us, and then we say to them,
4
"Can
by
you build one of
15?
these?"
Yeah.
Well, I
really
think
4 by
they've,
15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
they are actually
break your
doing
legs, isn't it?
they're doing a head version as well. As far as I remember. So the same, because you mentioned that the blues break, and I was like, I'm sure I've looked into one of the heads for someone, and I think they're doing like a hand-wide head.
Blues breaker head.
Well, just like a plexi basically.
So
yeah,
our
And they do a
advice-
2061 head, which is the same or very similar to that.
yeah. They're actually
That
doing
combo.
quite a few. 58 hand-wide 2x10.
Ooh.
I might have to do some little Marshall research tomorrow.
So Corey, I think our advice at the moment is 1974X combo.
I think for the money, yeah.
Well, I think also for the practicality of if you were to get, a plexi, you'd probably not be able to turn it up to a usable volume. It's just too loud. Whereas one of those at 18 watts almost sounds at a usable volume like the plexi at a non-usable volume. Volume that's just too loud for a current gigging situation.
I think in Wembley Stadium, they'd ask you to turn down a
Yes,
plexi head.
indeed.
He'd say, listen, I'm not putting it through the PA. You're going to
Too
need
loud.
to turn it
Yeah.
down.
And well, just a final note: if you really, really had to go for 2x12, they are doing a hand-wide version.
Of the 1974.
Yeah, it's called the 1973 XHW.
Oh wow, that might be another way to solve this problem.
Yeah,
Corey, I
if you want
recommend
more bottom end,
have a
How
look.
much is that one?
Have a look on the site.
1710.
Oh.
Right, last question. Jeff via email says, I have a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe and a separate boutique head. Is it possible to run them through a switching system that will allow me to plug them both into the internal speaker of the Hot Rod Deluxe?
Yes.
Are you
There's
thinking of the same product that I'm thinking of?
I'm thinking of the radial, is it a head bone?
the head bone.
The head bone.
Tell me about the radial stuff, because I don't know too much about radial, other than they do some good ABY pedals and good DIs and things like that.
Big into radial in a really big way.
For you guys, some of the stuff that we're going to start
The
doing.
acoustic DIs are amazing, but I'm more talking about the bass DI,
Right.
which is the bass bone,
Ooh.
which is Sans amp, eat your heart out.
Oh,
Sans
really?
amps are amazing.
Nothing could beat the Sans amp, surely.
Bass bone totally beats the Sans amp.
Wow. So we should have investigated
This
this.
sounds
Friend of mine-
intense.
Friend of mine, guy I used to be in a band with, has he's still got it, and runs it into his. He used to have a Aguilar head and cab.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
runs
yeah.
it into there, and it's the finest
Aguilar.
DI sound I've ever heard.
Wow. Worth
Straight into
investigating.
the
Jay.
desk to record. Sounds absolutely
They give
fantastic.
you
I'm
they
quite
give you so many
excited right
more
now.
There's a
options.
boost on there as well.
Okay, so Matt, tell us about the head bone.
Well, the thing is, actually, I was going to say with radial in general, they just make really good high end gear that works.
It's nothing fancy, is it? They
No,
just do
I
things
mean,
like DI boxes.
We're starting to do
but
a lot more of it now because it comes through from Shaw. So we're starting to do a lot more. So they do things like turntable DI boxes, like phantom power DI boxes, like little active acoustic DI boxes. But They've
ones
always
with EQ on as well, similar to that LR Baggs Para.
for example, like all their drives that they do, like a valve driven, they react like normal amplifiers, but they've all got little effects loops in as well, so you can always have like a delay in there or something like that. But they do a few types in this kind of bone series, I suppose it is. But yeah, the head bone allows you to plug 2 heads and go into 1 cab. Now, the problem always with guitar heads, especially valve heads, is that they need to go into a load. You know, the actual hand transfer of heat, I suppose it is, needs to go to a speaker cab. Otherwise,
no
the thing
load
will
and you'll explode.
Yeah, that's a techie toe. You've done a lot of gigs with a lot of.
I've been on tour before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whoa. So yeah, the problem is that obviously if you plug 2 things in 1 speaker, that's also going to overload it. So what this does is it's like an AB box, but for amp heads, I suppose is the best way to describe it. So you put both amp heads into this box, and then while one is active, the unit itself is taking the load from the head.
I think it simulates a load to the other head, to the unused head. It just makes it think, or it takes up some of that heat. There must be some kind of...
It's like a heat sink.
Yeah, it must be taking some of that power away.
Yeah.
Having
so
the
it means
heat
you can then go from one or the other instantly, and you can. And I've used stuff like that before, and it's quite cool because that means that you could go to a gig and you could take 2 heads with you and just plug into one cab, and then you can just AB. So one could be your clean and one could be your dry.
Because you use a pair of amps, don't you?
I always use 2.
You use 2 cabs though, and an AB white.
I use 2 combos, yeah.
Right, okay.
Because I have one amp that's dirty and very loud, and then another amp that's really, really dirty and even louder.
Nice.
So you have 2 selections. But I never use the really, really dirty, really, really loud one on its own. I'll always have one on and then a button to turn the other on.
Right.
Basically because, as Matt now knows, I've really heavily downsized my pedal board. So I've not got very much on it. I've only got a few choice ones, like like a boost, a delay,
but no, hold on. So you must have a big pedal board as well. Right? Everyone has a small pedal board. Everyone has a daddy bear, a mummy bear, and a baby bear in terms of pedal boards.
I've only got one. Oh, I feel ashamed. I feel ashamed now.
Hate to break it to you, Matt, but
yeah, instead of using a drive pedal, I've now got a loud amp and then an even louder amp. Yeah. So I don't need to have a little boost that kind of makes you think you're louder. So, I know that in fact, I can feel in my jeans, I can feel in my trousers that my amp is making more noise.
So, but in that case, because there's actually 2 speakers for the amps to connect to, you can just ABY. But in this case, we're saying radial headbone.
Headbone, yeah. Headbone. And if you're really nerdy more about cabs than you are about heads, you can buy the cab bone, which then allows you to plug a head into 2 different cabs and then AB between the 2 cabs. What
sort of price is that coming in at for the headbone?
Oh, I think they're about £250. I would have to double check. We generally get them on a special order only. But they're really handy for a lot of like studio use. For someone, for example, you're never going to have like 4 or 5 4x12s, but you may well buy 3 or 4 different amp heads, and it just allows you to
switch between.
Yeah,
gents, we are certainly up at time. We again haven't got time for Sean's question, who asked us about Rocksmith 2014, because again, none of us have had time to play it this week, but we're in talks to do something fun with that.
What console is it on? All of them?
There's all of them, all the consoles.
Would someone kindly send us their copy?
Yeah, if anyone wants to, if anyone's done already, send us a copy.
I did have a good time with it at Festival a few years ago when they first brought it out.
Good fun.
I've only got a Master System. Can we get it for that?
Right, time to wrap up.
Mega Drive.
Okay. If you've got any questions, we do honestly try and get around to answer all of them, and we will answer the Rocksmith one once we've had a go on it. If you've got questions, send them over to podcast@gak.co.uk. You can also get in touch with us via Twitter at @gak_co_uk, or on Facebook, facebook.com/GAK Music. If you want to talk to me, Twitter is the best way of doing it. @Mark_random. Joe Branton, how can people get in touch with you?
If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me on joe.branton@gak.co.uk, or more usefully, you can tweet me. My Twitter handle is Yosef_900, which we've started putting in our videos this week as well, which is cool.
Yes, so
if you forget that, you can watch the video.
Watch the vids. Matt Knight, how can people get in touch with you?
People can email me because emails are forwarded to every possible device that I own. matt.knight@gak.co.uk, or you can tweet me Matt_Knightsy. That's Knight with SIE on the end.
Dan Grace, I don't know why, but if people want to get in touch with you, firstly, how can they email you about acoustic stuff?
Well, about anything about guitars, you can email me at dan.grace@gak.co.uk. Anything from I need my action lowered to I want a Taylor, no worries.
Preferably, I want a Taylor.
Built to order.
Preferably, well, you can do
Or
whatever
can you order me a Taylor and then change the strings on it?
Easy done. Whatever you need, email me, or you can tweet me at ukulele death.
Thank you very much for joining us this week.
Feel free to tweet me.
Thanks so much for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week when I think Jay Cross is back.
I think he is.
Oh, God.
From America. No,
I'm not here next week, though.
in the USA.
I'm not here, though, so
definitely
it
not
still
getting
won't
through
be a
customs.
complete one until the week after.
Blimey, the crew, we're putting the band back together.
Yeah, we're going to play on top of a roof.
Right, see you
I think
later.
he's been saying that he now lives in America.
Oh yeah, he's not coming
I
back.
don't think he's coming back.
Right, so thanks very much. We'll see you next week, and bye.
Farewell.
Later.
Adios. No limits, Dan Grace.
No,
limits.
no,
Right.
no, no, no,
No,
no,
no,
no, no, no, no, no,
no, no,
there's
no, no, no.
limits, no, no.
I don't know the word.
Takes a really long time to get to the point, that
Yeah,
song,
it does.
doesn't it?
Yeah, really. Well,
Yes.